Hello everyone, welcome to ClayShareCon, day 2. This afternoon we have a wonderful tutorial with Carmen Allen from Mayco, and she's going to teach you how to combine stoneware glazes with washes. So this is a really great glazing tutorial. As you can see in front of me, I got some pieces made with Mayco glazes, with their stoneware glazes, and actually with washes on this one too. And oh yeah, right here, a little bit of Mayco copper wash with green tea glaze on top. One of my favorite combos for green on green. So I'm excited to see what Carmen's going to share with us. So let's throw it over to her. Hey, Carmen.
Hey there. Hi,
so
everybody.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Thanks so much for having us again for these wonderful events that you host. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for being with us. We appreciate it as well.
Awesome. Well, I'll just get right into it then. Today, we are going to go over a technique that's actually showcased on our YouTube channel. We've been doing project tutorials on our YouTube channel. It is our spin, drop, and coat technique. So I have the sample right here. This piece was done using washes, flux, and a glaze combination. But today we actually wanted to take that technique and sort of revamp it using different products, because we get a lot of questions from customers asking if they can use certain products with different projects and everything. And we actually, as ClayShare encourages as well, we really do encourage everyone to experiment with what you have. You don't need to have muddy waters and copper float to do this project. You can do it with whatever you have available. So that's what I wanted to go over today. I will review these samples in a moment, but first I want to get started on applying the glaze so that we can talk a little bit during the drying time, because as all you guys I'm sure know, there's a lot of drying time with ceramics. So to start out, I'm going to be doing this project here. So I kind of wanted to showcase doing the project on a different form as well, just to encourage everyone experimenting, and just because sometimes projects will perform differently on different shapes. So to start out, I have the copper wash here. The copper wash is one of our 5 washes that we have in our stoneware wash line. And it works great underneath glazes, layered in between, all sorts of things. Actually, sorry, I'm so sorry. I forgot, I'm using the flux first. Sorry, I want to put the copper wash or cobalt wash on top of the flux here, because the flux will encourage a little bit of mobility with that wash.
So using the light flux or the dark flux?
Copper wash, those two are the highly mobile washes. Our iron wash and our rutile wash are very stable washes. And then the cobalt wash is sort of in between. So it's kind of whatever you're layering it with, it'll kind of perform alongside that. So if you have a glaze that does have some mobility, it's going to go ahead and move along with that. And then if you have a glaze that's really stable, it's going to stay still. So first, I'm just doing these 2 bands of our flux here. I'll end up doing 2 coats of the flux to really encourage that mobility to happen. Here, I've just taken our light flux and put it in a designer bottle just for ease of application. But if you don't have the designer bottle necessarily, you can definitely just apply it with a brush. Just keep in mind, we're using this because it really puts the wash on nice and thick. So maybe applying 3 coats or 4 coats of the wash with a brush would kind of give you the same results as applying it with the writer tip. So as we always say, everything is really versatile. We love experimenting in ceramics. So any technique you can make work for you. Our job is just to show you sort of how the products perform. So I've got my first coat of flux on here, and I'm gonna let that dry, but so now we'll go ahead to our other samples here. This sample here, I have applied the same base of the project. So I applied 2 bands of flux around the rim. I did 2 coats with the rider tip, just like I'm doing here. And then on top of that, I added the dots of cobalt wash. And the glaze that I used on top of that, instead of using a combination like I used here, I just wanted to showcase how it would look with just a single crystal glaze. So here I've used winter wood on top of that. I chose winter wood because this glaze moves. It can be encouraged to move, I guess would be a better way to put it. So applying it in a technique that enhances mobility is really going to get these like beautiful striations that happen, and they melt really nicely together. I love doing projects like these on bowls just because I think the design looks really, really nice flowing into the bowl. Not to mention highly mobile combinations can't run off of your bowl if it's inside of it. So this bowls are really nice ways to experiment with the way that products perform, especially if you're expecting it to be a little bit mobile. So that's one I really, really like here with just the winter wood on top of the same technique. And like I said earlier, if you haven't checked it out, we do have this technique done this way on our YouTube channel. So if I'm going a little bit fast or you want to review this technique a little bit later, definitely check it out on our YouTube channel. We have a full tutorial, as well as we just have the project instructions written on our website. So if you need any product ideas or anything like that, definitely be sure to look at that on our website. So I'm going to go ahead and just squeeze another line of the flux on here. This guy, it's not all the way dry, but for time's sake, I'm going to go ahead and get some more product on this piece.
And while you're doing that, I'd like to ask you a question. We've had a few folks ask about, will these combos be food safe?
So we don't do food safe testing on our combinations. We have no reason to believe that this would not qualify as being food safe, but we do recommend that our customers that are selling works into the chain of commerce get food safe testing done on their pieces just to guarantee that. But there isn't anything toxic leaching from any of these products, so layering them doesn't see any reason why it would like all of a sudden be bad, I guess. And then another factor to keep in mind when you're thinking about suitability for dinnerware would be the surface texture. So these combinations that create a lot of mobility, sometimes they can produce crazing. So crazing is a really, really hot topic in the world of ceramics for sure. Everyone has a different opinion as to whether it is okay to use on dinnerware or not. So that I think is up to each person to decide for themselves. The bodies that we are using are vitrified, so they're not going to absorb moisture or anything like that. But one thing to keep in mind when you do have anything that has crazing on it is making sure to be able to clean that surface sufficiently. So using a dishwasher or something like that that brings high heat that kills bacteria, that's going to be a way to ensure you don't have any problems with any sort of surface texture or anything like that.
And then we had another question about the washes. Can you explain how they might be different from color concentrates or interactive pigments? What exactly are the washes?
So our washes are actually just mineral like oxides that have been put into a brushable formulation. So if you wanted to just buy powdered iron oxide and mix it with some water and maybe some gum solution, you might get something kind of similar. These are going to brush on very, very smoothly. So it's kind of makes it easier for application. I know some studios that I've worked in, they've had manganese wash that they've just like mixed in house. And it's really, really hard to get a consistent application because the wash itself is really, really grainy or something like that, but they are going to perform similar to if you just had like iron oxide or copper oxide or cobalt oxide, all of those things. It's basically that just put into a more user-friendly product. And if you do have questions about any of our washes, obviously feel free to ask them now because that's what we're here for. But if you'd like to check it out, we did just release a brand new wash brochure. It's on our website under our resources tab that you can find. It'll go over the firing results for cone 06, cone 6, and cone 10 for the washes because we do encourage the variety of firing ranges with those, and just kind of gives you a better understanding of like how each one individually will work layered with glazes and on its own.
Fantastic. And then the light flux you used in the bottle, did you have to thin that down before putting it in there, or did you use it straight from the jar?
So I did use this straight from the jar here. I have like spoken with customers that get kind of like a variety of consistency with fluxes. I personally like when it is a little bit thicker, especially when you're using it in a bottle, because as you saw there, I did put this on pretty heavy and it didn't end up moving or anything like that. But if you do get a fresh jar of flux, it's going to be thinner than what this is here. So this jar was made in 2021, so it's at least a year old, but any jars that are like fresh off the line, they're going to be a little bit more liquidy. So in that instance, you might want to like apply these rows a little bit thinner and maybe do them a little bit more, or just save yourself the headache and just brush on 3 or 4 coats. So you don't have to deal with it maybe dripping or something like that. But this project is actually really forgiving to variation in your application, considering that it has so much mobility. So like if your flux line does drip down a little bit, it's just kind of ahead of the game. It's gonna get down a little bit earlier than it would once it's in the kiln. Any more questions for right now? I can go on to apply the cobalt wash.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do the cobalt.
Great. All right, so our cobalt wash here, like I said earlier, part of the wash family. This one fires to a nice royal blue, as you know, nice cobalt blue. This wash, this one in particular tends to go on a little bit thinner than our other washes. So if I were to do this project with any of the other washes, I'd probably only want to do 1 coat of the dots. But since I really want this to show up concentrated, I want to do 2 layers of the dots. If you ever brush with this, you'll kind of understand what I'm saying, how it kind of like goes on like a little bit waxier instead of like really, really concentrated like the other washes. And that's just kind of the nature of the material that we're using here. And I just use a little like eyedropper bottle here to make it easier to do the dots. But again, if you don't have that material, this thing, you can just apply your dots with, you know, the back end of your brush. It's just like a dip and a dot. So it is a little bit more tedious, but you can definitely, you can definitely get it done that way.
So you're dropping it right onto the band of flux.
Yes. And like I kind of was saying, I put the flux on first to really encourage that mobility with the cobalt. And that's kind of why I'm setting it on top of this, because the cobalt can be stable if it's put in a stable place. So I think that, like, particularly on this sample here with the green tea, which I'll kind of showcase in a minute, if I had just put that underneath green tea without it being on top of flux, it would not have moved quite as much as it did. So I'm kind of like layering it a little bit above it and a little bit on it, but whatever works. And I'm putting a lot of dots on this one for some reason. But I definitely want to make sure it's making contact with that flux just to make sure it's pulling it down. And same with this, like if my dots start dripping, it's no problem. It's just going to be moving anyway, so not a big deal. And this product seems to all be taking a while to dry, so I might not be able to get to applying the green tea on the outside, but I'll definitely go over applying it on the inside just to showcase how to apply a nice heavy coat. So we'll see if we get to that point, but if not, we can still go over the application here. So I've got my first coat of cobalt dots on. As you can see, they're pretty wacky, but we're just getting the material on there to showcase the interaction here. So
we had a question. Light flux right now is really hard to get. Do you have a substitute glaze that you would recommend?
That is a great question. I guess something that I might recommend in place of light flux is actually not even a stoneware product, because we don't have a lot of stoneware products that like are made to just like run, aside from flux, which like that's the intention of it. But if you check out our elements line, we do have 2 element glazes that are kind of light in color that do produce a lot of mobility. So you might, if you use these as a substitute, perhaps do some testing and like cut back a little bit, because like I said, they're low fire glazes. They're really, really mobile at cone 6, but they are gonna add some nice light cream variation. We have our EL 101 Oyster. That kind of leans a little bit more bluish, creamy color, like a really subtle blue. It's definitely more like creamy. And then EL 103, Sea Spray, I believe is the name of that one. That one's kind of creamy and leans a little bit more like turquoise or jade color. But those are going to add a light colored mobility to your stoneware glazes if you do end up layering them. But again, like I said, they are going to be very mobile, being fired a little bit higher. So just make sure you do some testing, maybe try it out on a bowl first, you know, save those kiln shelves.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's great. So if you can't get the fluxes, you could get those EL 101 or EL 103.
Yeah.
Great.
Any other questions?
So do the top and bottom dots need to line up vertically?
For
the wash you did their dots, should people line them up vertically, like one over another for the double, or does that matter?
No, not necessarily. I think that I kind of got a little wacky with the application of this one in particular, but so I think we can review this one here a little bit. Here I kind of staggered the dots. If I was like being a little bit more timely about the application, that's kind of how I did it. Because on here, I really love how this flux and green tea combo kind of runs over top of the cobalt here, as opposed to, let's say if they were aligned, that's when you get those real good stripes. So solid stripes. We'll see. I think I staggered it on this bowl too. Yeah, so I staggered them on here too. But if you kind of just want it to be more stripy, I think lining them up would be good. So it's really up to your preference. I kind of like doing it staggered just to showcase a little bit more variation.
Great. And we had a few people asking, you know, and it relates to not being able to find the flux, that there's been, as we all know, all across the pottery industry, shortages of materials. And so does Mayco have any idea when they are going to see that ease up on your end?
I mean, so I guess the difficult part about that is, so just because we are producing everything doesn't mean that it's getting out to where it needs to be in a timely manner. So as everyone hears in this echo chamber of supply shortages, there's supply shortages from the materials that we're getting, there's supply shortages from the in transit times, you know, like getting things shipped on time, and things like that. So I don't know that we can necessarily pinpoint when this nightmare will be over. It does really suck, because I do hear a lot more, even recently, about how people are really having a difficult time getting products. And all that I can say is that we are working as hard as we can. We added more people, longer days, like more shifts, just to try to get the products made, but there's still going to be that delay in actually getting the products to where they need to be. So I'm sorry that I can't say like an exact date or a timeline necessarily. All I can say is that we're just like working as hard as we can, getting everything made that we can. And hopefully those get to you guys as soon as they can, I guess.
Yeah, and I think it's like I mentioned, it's across everything in pottery. And even if like Mayco's making the product and getting the product out, there's other issues that are involved with shipping and getting it delivered to your distributor where you buy the glaze. So there's questions. Mayco could be making the same amount they've always made. It's just there's other issues out of their control. So it depends. We're all kind of just, and it can take 6 months to a year for those shipping issues to resolve themselves once supply is available. So this is something we're going to have to just live with for a little longer and find substitutes. I think it's a great chance to try something you might not have normally used, and maybe you'll come up with a great combo because you can't get your favorite glaze or something like I was mentioning, because Carmen shared those element glazes. That would be a great sub. And someone else mentioned Cascade as an option for flux. So substitute clear Cascade is what they said.
Yeah, and so the Cascades actually I found, so the Cascades move a little bit less than the flux or the element glazes. So obviously, if you're kind of substituting a product and trying to find a different solution, always do testing. We always recommend to do testing because we want you to make sure you understand the performance, not necessarily like this needs to look exactly like this, because there's so many factors that contribute to a glaze's performance. But the Cascades are basically what we consider to be like our low fire flux. And that is definitely said with nuances because, like I said, it does not move quite as much as flux does, but it does promote interaction with the glazes. So I think that I would say that it's something that promotes more interaction, less so mobility, if that makes any sense. So if you're looking for something to really, really move, I think substituting different low fire glazes, like in our Elements line and our Jungle Gems line, those are going to produce a lot of mobility. And the Cascades, if you want to be a little bit more reserved or you're using a community kiln, maybe that would be a good way for you to layer things to promote more interaction and not quite as much like waterfall mobility. But that's a great point. Thanks for bringing it up. Sweet. Any more questions right now? I can go over, I'll review this sample and then maybe start applying glaze on the inside before I apply another coat of our cobalt here.
Well, we've had a couple questions. You know, some folks are really loving all the samples you have and would like to know what is on every sample. I know you did share them at the beginning, so they can always check out their replay.
I'm happy to go over them again. We've got some drying time. Like I said, this is taking a little bit to dry here, so I'll definitely go through what we have on these samples again. First, I'll just do the one that I'm doing since I haven't gone over it yet. So on all three of these samples, it started the same. So they're all started the same way using 2 bands of flux, and that can be applied with either a rider tip, which I do two layers, or if you don't have a rider tip, go ahead, you can use a brush, maybe do 3 or 4 layers, just to make sure it's applied nice and thick. So we first put the light flux on, and then we do our cobalt dots here. And these I'll do 2 coats of. Like I said, the cobalt goes on, it's not quite as concentrated. It kind of goes on a little bit thinner than our other washes. So we do 2 coats of the cobalt wash. And then this sample here actually just has the green tea. It's just green tea over it only. I wanted to showcase a crystal glaze, a classic glaze, and then the combination is our original. So here we've just got 3 coats of green tea over top of that. You can see this beautiful lighter variation that happens with the flux. And then all those pull this lovely cobalt down with it. I would highly recommend using flux with green tea. It's very, very cool. It looks really nice on a variety of clay bodies, and I'm kind of a sucker for this bright turquoise color. So this one's just green tea with the same foundation here. And then this one here, we have, again, the same foundation with flux and the cobalt. And then this is just winter wood on top. So winter wood is another one that looks really, really nice with flux. It pulls those crystals down to get these beautiful striations. If you look on the back, here is winter wood just on its own. So it's a nice smooth matte color with some crystal variation, but here it really, really melts together, and that flux brings out a nice gloss to it.
What temp were these fired to?
These were all fired to cone 6. So in-house, we typically fire everything to cone 6, aside from when we do just like product testing. Winter wood is definitely one that I would encourage to fire to cone 6. A lot of our matte glazes are just going to be a little bit more satiny when you bring them up to that hotter temperature. And if you're not one that fires to cone 6, even doing like a cone 5 with a hold, so cone 5, 10 or 15 minute hold, that can also alleviate any like dryness that you might feel with the matte glazes. And then the final one, so this sky is our original. So this is kind of the basis of this technique originally. It is on our YouTube channel, as well as we have the project written up on our website. So if you'd want a step-by-step tutorial watching from start to finish, kind of like we're reviewing here, check out our YouTube channel. We've got it on there. But this just has, again, the same foundation with the flux and cobalt. And then we did 2 coats of copper float, which I have that on the back here. So this is the copper float. And then 2 coats of muddy waters. So I chose the muddy waters because I knew it would complement this beautiful cobalt color that happened. And then adding the mobility with that brown, I thought would be really, really nice. So this is just copper float and muddy waters over the original trailing technique.
That's copper float on the outside, and then inside is muddy waters. So
there's the combo on the inside too.
Oh, actually. You did both on the inside.
Yeah,
you did copper float.
The whole thing has 2 coats of copper float, and then just the inside has 2 coats of muddy waters. So this is what copper float looks like with 2 coats. If I had done 3, you can kind of see where this copper variation kind of builds up. You'd have a lot more of that happening. This kind of like brown or light color, this is because I just did the 2 coats. So that kind of gives you an idea of like the different performance of this glaze, depending on your application. All right. I'll get a couple more dots on, and then we can go over applying the green tea, because I definitely want to hit on the glaze application, because that's something that we run into a lot. It seems like a lot of people are very light-handed or a little bit reserved with their glaze application, which I totally understand. Of course, nobody wants to ruin something that they've spent so hard working on and making, or trying to pay for kiln shells, or even just cleaning kiln shells. It's all a big pain. So I definitely understand being reserved, but I can showcase a few techniques to kind of save your kiln shells while also still getting enough product on your pieces.
And we had a question about that shape you're working on. Do you think that shape's a better option for something that's going to flow and melt more than, say, a straight-sided mug? Because you have that nice belly that kind of stops the flowing a little bit.
Yeah. So I do think that this shape is nice, and not necessarily because of the belly, but because of this foot here. So having a little bit of a foot on your piece kind of gives you that extra line of defense when, you know, you get something that's really, really mobile and it has something to catch on and gather around. Mugs that just go straight to the table, that has nothing to stop it. So that's something that you do want to keep in mind when you're applying glazes. Also, another thing to keep in mind is paying attention to your handles. So I kind of call handles like basically just like a slip and slide for glazes. So if you get mobility on your handles, that's just going to, you can even see this, it kind of like built up a little bit down here because all of this glaze from the handle slides down here. It comes down here. It's just a lot more glaze to gather in this particular area. So when you're glazing your handles, perhaps you might want to be receiving your coats or being mindful of which glazes you're putting on your handles. Like I didn't put any of this combination in between here just because I knew that they would all kind of gather here. Because a lot of places, a lot of the times when you have something stick to the shelf, it's going to be underneath the handle. So keep track of what products are going on your handle and how you're glazing your handle. All right, so I'll go ahead and go over just applying our green tea here. And if there's any more questions, feel free to shoot them off while I'm going through this.
We got lots. I don't think, I'm just going to tell everybody, I don't think I'll be able to ask all the questions you've typed. I'm going to do my best, but I don't think we have the time, but I'll try. Will Mayco be bringing any flux to NCECA?
To NCECA. So at NCECA, we are actually going to be handing out our Himalayan salt glaze. So that's going to be what we'll have there. We don't actually sell any products at NCECA. We're just bringing like free samples of our Himalayan salt. So that was our from last year's glaze release, which we unfortunately didn't get to showcase at NCECA. So we're kind of like bringing it now to showcase.
Fabulous.
All right, so one thing I do want to note with our application here is the brush that I'm using. So we always encourage using a natural fiber brush that plumps up really well. This number 4 soft fan is great for that. And when you're loading your brush, I don't ever want to load my brush like this. Like I want to make sure you don't have to like stir the whole thing in there, but definitely make sure all of the bristles are saturated when you go to apply a coat. So I'm just going to start applying it to the inside here, just making sure my coat's going on nice and smooth. And then I can showcase receding coats on the outside a little bit if we want to review that. But if you just want to go ahead and pop off some more questions, let's get at it.
So when you're firing there at Mayco to cone 6, do you do a hold or do you just do a straight 6 and then stop?
We just do a straight cone 6. We always make sure to use witness cones in our kiln to make sure that we're getting to the correct temperature. The only time that I use a hold or that we use a hold is basically when we're doing our alternative clay body testing. And in that instance, we've always used just a 10-minute hold at the top. And that's always seemed to serve really well up until last year, our 2021 glaze release. Those glazes were a little bit more finicky on different clay bodies than almost any of our other glazes that we've put out. So in that instance, to alleviate the surface texture that happened to those, we actually do a drop hold, which we found smoothed those glazes out really, really well. So now it's just kind of standard to be doing a drop hold with everything because it seemed to alleviate issues with kind of our most finicky glazes on different clay bodies. But if you just want to do a hold at the top, typically that's a really good way to alleviate any issues. But when we do our drop hold, we just do a 10-minute hold at 2150. So it just drops about less than 100 degrees. We do a little bit of hold there, and then we just let it naturally drop from that.
Fantastic. And then a question about why are you brushing the glaze on the inside instead of rolling the glaze?
I guess because I didn't make a rolling glaze. Like typically I'll just brush the whole piece, but You could definitely roll the glaze on the inside if you want to save yourself the time. And if you like have a separate batch of any glaze mixed up as a rolling glaze, definitely do that. I'm just kind of like save myself the container, I guess, because I'm so used to brushing it. So I honestly didn't even consider it. I usually only roll glazes if it's something I can't like reach in very well. Just because it does give you more control of the application too. It's like I really understand how my hand works with the brush and how the glazes go on that way. So it would just be another application technique to kind of understand. So if that's something you like to do, definitely save yourself the, I don't know, 10 minutes it's going to take here, because I understand brushing lots of mugs gets very time consuming.
So some folks are asking if they can't go to NCECA. Is there a way to get free samples?
I don't know. I don't think so.
No, usually you have to go. That's how it is. All clay conferences, there's always samples, and that's one of the perks of going in person. Like, it's incentive. You go there and you get samples.
You get free stuff. I know obviously not everyone can fly across the country and go to NCECA, unfortunately, but they are really, really good about juggling it to different regions. We did miss the one in Ohio last year again. Here, sad face. It was very unfortunate because if you guys don't know, we are located in Columbus, Ohio, which is just 2 hours north of Cincinnati, which is where NCECA was supposed to be last year. So this year we're making the trek all the way over to California for it.
Yeah. So, and 2023 NCECA is going to be in Richmond, Virginia, I believe. So if you are on the East Coast or the middle of the country and you can't go to California for this year's NCECA, which is in just a few weeks, plan for Richmond in 2023.
Perfect. Yeah. Yeah.
And
I love that they do that. It's really nice.
Yeah, it's nice that they move it about. And did I hear you're going to have new glazes? Is Mayco having new glazes this year?
No, we do not have new glazes this year. Yeah. So, since we're trying really hard just to keep up with what we got. And we thought about making new glazes, but again, it's just like, it's been difficult enough just to get the materials for everything we need. Everyone's working in every department and spread really thin. So putting the energy into making new glazes this year just wasn't an option for us. So we're kind of featuring the glazes from 2021 since we didn't get to showcase them at NCECA last year, since it wasn't in person or anything like that. We're just going to showcase them this year.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I think a lot of companies are doing that this year. They're not coming out with new glazes.
Yeah, we were really worried that people would get really mad if we came out with new glazes, honestly, because like there's so many people waiting for glazes that we already make, so we didn't want to stir the pot in that way. And it would just have been just a really, really big deal for us to try to get that done.
Oh, no, someone said NCECA is going to be in Cincinnati in 2023. So I've got conflicting. So I heard Richmond from somebody else. So I've got to check with NCECA if they've put the official announcement out there, because so we have a mystery to solve. We'll figure it out and I'll let you all know.
That would be super awesome, honestly, because I was really bummed to miss the one that was like in our home state, just quick drive down there. So I vote for that.
Yeah, I'll see if I can find out if they have anything about 2023 on their site, and if so, I'll
so I can go over receding coats on the handle here if you guys want, or if we want to just like spit off questions for the rest of the time. I'm happy with either. I don't know. Do you talk about receding coats very often in your clay share videos?
We don't, unless we use a different term. So
sweet. Cool. Well, I can do that really quick. And then it's basically just like pulling your coats back. So if you use a different term for it, let me know, because I always feel kind of funny saying recede the coats. I'm not sure if that's like totally correct. But so let's say I'm putting this glaze on the handle here. And I know
I just checked in NCECA. I don't want to interrupt you because it's saying it is in Cincinnati. So 2023 should be in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Okay, sweet. Heck yeah. That's awesome. I'm so excited.
Middle of the country. Yeah, very exciting.
Well, that's awesome that they decided to do like a makeup for
They
it
need to
being
do
on
one in Richmond too. So they both need,
Yeah.
we need two makeups.
Yeah.
But that's great. I love it because it's in the middle of the country. It makes it easier for everybody to get to.
Yeah, definitely. Having it be all the way over on and either of the coasts is just kind of a lot.
It is difficult.
All right, so I have my first coat on here. And so basically reseating the coats is just pulling them back. So I don't know if I'll have time to actually showcase it, each one of these reseating, but so I have my first coat going all the way down. My second coat, I would probably take up, and this depends on how mobile your glaze is, how much glaze you're putting on, everything like that, how much you're reseating it. This green tea did not move a whole lot, so I would probably just reseat it like 1/4 of an inch. So my second coat would only go down to the top of this handle here, and then my third coat would only go down to this here. And that's kind of to make sure the whole thing has glaze on it while still giving the glaze room to move down your piece a little bit too. So just kind of accounting for the mobility is basically what you're doing by doing that.
Fantastic. I didn't know it was called reseating. I just am like 2/3 the way down is what I would just.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I like the term reseating though. I'm gonna start using that.
Yeah, let's get on and we'll make it a thing.
I like it. We'll make reseating coats.
Yeah.
So some folks would love to see, do you have any samples of the Himalayan salt there?
Man, that would have been a good idea.
I've used it. I've done some pieces with it, and I don't think I have anything available either to share. But it's a great glaze.
It's really cool, I promise.
I promise it's good.
So I can, I'll make sure to bring them for tomorrow because tomorrow we have a class at 11.
Right, Carmen's back tomorrow. Yes, exactly, at 11. How to use and tint magma and mud crack.
Yes. I've been doing lots of testing for you guys. So I love doing that. And so I'm not going to be doing a project, but I will be just reviewing the results, answering questions. I know we get lots and lots of questions about our texture glazes. So I want to just be available to help you guys troubleshoot as well as encourage you to experiment and get a little funky with it.
So we got about 30 seconds left. So I don't know see if I can get one more question.
Yeah, let's have it.
Let's see. So the reseating coats we did. Want to see Himalayan salts. Drop hold. People want to know what's a drop hold. Will you explain that? I think pretty well back when you were talking about that. It's just where the hold's not the top temp. It's just dropped down.
Yeah, you let the temperature drop and then you put a hold at it. So I'm not really sure how our kiln has like a nice computer on it. It makes it really, really easy. I've not had to set it on different.
Yeah, Matt. That's nice. Do you actually have a place where people can see your firing schedules? Do you have that information out there?
We don't have it like on our website. I guess we could put it on our website. I'll make a note to do that, but I do post it on our social media accounts, particularly when we post about our alternative firings. So we're trying to get our alternative firings also put on our website, just so that they're all put in one place. So you don't have to scroll through our social media to find them. And in that, we can make sure to try to get our drop hold schedule put on there too, because it is nice just to see a schedule.
That would be so great. And so we're sadly out of time for today, but Carmen's going to be back tomorrow at 11 a.m.
Eastern time, and she's going to be working with the mud crack glaze and the magma glazes. So that's going to be really fun. I did just see a post that Clayscapes Pottery has the light flux from Mayco in stock right now, although probably not for long. So if you're looking for that, you could go get some and get that glaze for your playing with pottery. This is called spin and drop, Carmen, am I right? Spin and drop technique. So yes, spin, drop, and coat. So a little different than the peacock technique that we've been doing on Clayshare, but a nice version, and I really love it with the green tea. So Thanks so much, Carmen, for being with us. This replay will be ready in about an hour or so, so you can catch it then. Next, we're going to be back with Debbie Delacruz from De La Designs, and she's going to be sharing some of her new cutters and shapes for the spring and doing a tutorial for you all. So come back and